Guys, this isn't going to be any sort of spectacular video. What we're looking at here is to revise for Unit 3, which is fractions, or we'll call it fractions. It's not really decimals and percentages. Decimals was in Unit 1, so there's not a lot of work with decimals other than money, right? We will call it fractions, decimals, percentages, and some money questions. But we're going to split this in half. We're going to look at this stuff first, and then we'll have a little look at some money questions at the end. Let's start with putting fractions in ascending or descending order. Let's take a look at these fractions maybe. Okay. I don't know, 11 out of 20. Okay, what we'd have to do is get a common denominator so that we were able to compare the fractions. So if I was looking at these bottom numbers, these denominators here, 4 quarters, fifths, tenths, and 20ths, they're all numbers that will go into 20. So we can leave that one the same. We can leave that one here the same. But if we double this fraction, we get 14 out of 20. If we times this fraction by 4, we get 8 out of 20. And if we times this fraction by 5, we get 15 out of 20. So in order, 2/5, this is ascending order. If it's descending, we'd go the other way, we'd put the biggest first, but ascending order would be 2/5, which is 8 over 20, followed by 11 over 20, followed by 7/10, which is 14 out of 20, and followed by 3/4, which is 15 out of 20. Okay, question 1. So question 2, write 260 grams out of 2 kilograms as a fraction in simplest terms. So we've got to write it as a fraction and then simplify it. Okay, so as a fraction is 260. Well, it wouldn't go over 2 because we've got different units. These are grams, these are kilograms. Okay, so 2 kilograms is 2,000 grams, right? And then in terms of simplifying, we could divide the top and bottom by 10, so we're left with 26 out of 200. Then you might go, oh look, they're both even numbers, let's half them. Half of 26 and half of 200. 13 is a prime number, so there's nothing that will go into 13 other than 1 and 13, so we can stop that there. Question 3, let's take a look at something like fractions of amounts. Pretty simple, right? 2/7 of 63, right? So we're going to split the 63 into this many parts, right? So each part is worth 9, and then that's how many parts I want. So we're going to times that by 2 to get 18, or divide by the bottom, the denominator, times by the top, the numerator. Okay, next question. Let's take a look at converting fractions to percentages. Now, look, I think we're on to like sort of question 4. If I wanted to put, I don't know, 3/8 in as a and change it to a percentage, if I had a calculator, I would just do that. Right? I believe it's 37.5%. Right? But we don't have a calculator for this part of the exam, so we've got to find an alternative way. So the alternative way is to understand that the word percentage means out of 100. So if I had something like 3 out of 20, my job would be, well, what's that out of 100? Or if I had 19 out of 25, great. But what's that out of 200, 100? Okay. So this one here, I'd be going, well, I need to times this fraction by 5. It's all about equivalent fractions again. Right, so it becomes 15 out of 100. So that's 15%. Or here, 25 goes into 100 4 times. So I'm timesing this fraction by top and bottom by 4. No idea. What's 419, guys? That's buying myself time to think of it. That is 76 out of 100, or 76%. Okay. The only other thing I want to just quickly pick up on fractions is adding, taking away, multiplying, dividing fractions. So something like 1/3 plus 2/5. I don't know. Right? Got to make those denominators the same again. Okay, it's like adding 2 different things. right? The bottom number is the name, as I always say, is the name of the fraction, right? I have 1/3. I have one of these things. I have two of these things. I have 1/3 plus 2/5, right? So it'd be like adding pens and rulers. We're adding two different things. But if we can get those bottom numbers equivalent the same, then we are adding the same thing, okay? So if we times that by 5, and times that by 5, and times that by 3, and times that by 3, then we end up with 5/15 add 3/15, and then that means I have 8/15ths in total. Subtraction would be exactly the same, right? So if that were, if that symbol there were a subtract, I would just do 5 take away 3, and I would have 2/15ths. Multiplying, stick with the same fractions. Multiply the top, multiply the bottom. I don't think you'd be asked to simplify the answer, or you can't simplify that, but just be careful. If it says simplify your answer, do it, but if it doesn't, don't. Okay. And finally, divide. So we go for 1/3 divided by 2/5, right? Again, we used keep flip change, right? KFC, keep flip change. So keep that one the same. Flip the second fraction. Reciprocal is the better word than flip, but we use flip because it's easier to remember. Flip that one and change the times, change the divide to a times, and then you can multiply the top and multiply the bottom, and you've got your answer there. Might also be worth talking about, lovely people, mixed numbers, okay? Something like that. If I had to change that to a improper fraction, I would look at if I have 3 whole pizzas and I'm splitting my pizza into quarters, I would times those. So 3 full pizzas of quarters would give me 12 slices, and then add that extra 1 slice on. So there are 13 quarters there. Okay, or vice versa. If I had to change that into a mixed number, I would do 13 divided by 4. How many 4s go into 13? So my 4 times table is 4, 8, 12. So 4 goes into 13 3 whole times, remainder 1, but we write the remainder as a fraction over the original. What my words have gone messed up in my head, over the original denominator. Okay, that pretty much brings an end to everything I want to talk about for the first section of this test. Let's move on to the money stuff. Okay, four types of money question. Right, let's take them in order. Start with compound interest. I'm not going to write out full questions, but what we're looking to do here is invest an amount in a bank. Let's say we invest £12,000, and the bank say we will pay you 3% interest, and I decide to leave the money in the bank for 2 years. 3% compound interest. That's per year. Okay. So £12,000 into the bank, being paid 3% compound interest per annum per year for 2 years. How much interest do I pay? What is in my bank at the end? Okay, so in year 1, so we're going to set it up. We need 3% of this. Well, 1% basically is divided by 100, isn't it? So 1% is 120. So 3% would be triple that, which is 360. So the new amount in my bank at the end of year 1 is the 12,000 I originally put in, plus this extra 3% that they've decided to give me. So I'm now up to 12,360. Into year 2. This time, it's not 1% of the original number, it's 1% of what's now in my bank. So 1% of that, if I divide that by 100, is 123.6. But because we're talking about money, we're going to need that 0 as well, 123.60. So 3% is 3 times that, right? I'm going down here to do that. I need to times that by 3. Okay. 3 zeros. 3 sixes are 18. The point in there. 3 threes are 9, add 1 is 10. 3 twos are 6, add 1 is 7. And 3 ones are 3. So it's £370.80. And again, I need to add that on to what was in my bank at the start of the year, right? Now, a few of you preferred, I got no idea. Oh, I've left myself a real under pressure one here, right? So £730.80. As a visual, chaps, we start with 12 grand, we work out 3%, which was 360, and we add it on. We're up to 12,360. We work out 3% of that, and we add it on, which was £370.80, and we end up with that final number, 12,730 and 80p. Okay, let's put a bubble. I'm going to stay on this page. Okay. The next type of money question is a reverse percentage. They just tend to use money to teach reverse percentage. So something like in a 20% sale, a TV costs, I don't know, £720. What was the original cost? What was the cost before we did this percentage change? Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. As this is a 20% sale, 20% has been taken off the price in order to arrive at this amount. So we started with the original, which was 100%, and we've taken 20% off the price. So what we are now looking at represents 80% of the original value. So if 80% is that, to find 10%, I'm not dividing by 10 like I would in any normal sum. I'm going to divide by 8 because what I know is 80%. Okay, if I divide this by 8 as well, 8 goes into 72 9 times, the 0 in the end. But what I'm looking to do is to go back to the original. Okay, so to times that by 10. So I'll put the pound sign in for my final answer. So the final answer is £900. Next type of money question, the third type of money question, is a utility bill, which we taught actually for the first time last week. Yeah, because stupidly left it out. Okay, so what we're looking for here is how many units I've used at the start of the period. Okay, let's go with 12,000, keep it easy. How many units I've used at the end of the billing period. Let's say this has gone up to 12,800. And the cost per unit, let's say that's 6 pence. There'll be a standing charge. Sometimes the standing charge is monthly, so it'll say, oh, it's £8 a month for 3 months, but sometimes they just give you the standing charge, so let's do that. So I'm going to say it's £24, and then there's VAT at 5%. So here's how, that's the information we'll be given, right? That's what we're looking for. So here's what we do. We start by working out how many units we used in the billing period, normally a 3-month period. In other words, how much has this gone up during this bill, right? So we're going to do 12,800 and we're going to take away 12,000. So we have used 800 units in this billing period. Each unit costs 6p. So we're now going for the cost of the units. So 800 units costing 6 pence each. That's 4,800, 6 8s are 48, plus my 2, that's a pence. Right? Okay, but that's pence. In pounds, that's £48. Divide by 100. All right, to get it into pounds. So units used, and how much do they cost? Then we add the standing charge. So we take our bill of £48 and we add on to it this £24 that the electric company are charging me just for the privilege of having electric. And we're up to a £72 bill. Done. And finally, in come the government and say, no, work out 5% of that number, add that on and give that to us. So 10% of £72. This time we are divided by 10 because this is the original, the 100% amount, okay? So 10% of that would be £7.20, but we're not being charged that. We're being charged 5%, which is half of £7.20, which is that. We then have the total bill including VAT, which is the £72 plus the VAT, and we're up to £75.60. pence. And that is a utility bill calculation. And finally, income tax. So the question here will give me some brackets, normally bullet pointed. So they might say up to £12,000, for example, is tax-free. They might say 0%, or they might call it 0%. They sometimes call this the personal allowance. So there's a lot of ways they might say it, which all mean the same thing. Tax-free, personal allowance, 0%, all mean you can have the first 12,000 of what you earn for free. Right? The second bullet point will take us from 12,000 or whatever our tax-free amount is up to another figure. Let's go to 42,000. And that is normally charged at, I'll use the at symbol there, at 20%. And then finally, above 42,000, 40%. Now let's pick a person. Let's go with, we'll have a slight change of colour here. Let's go for Dan. Oh, excuse my name. Dan earns 58,000 per annum per year. Calculate his tax, his income tax for the year. That'll mean, okay, so you don't have to divide that by 12 to get a monthly, even though you're paid monthly. What's the tax for the full year? So we start with a little number line or a cap. Right, I did some cap versions with it. You're into the cap or a number line, but it's important that we get 3 numbers on there. We want to get on there the first tax bracket, and we know that any money in there is free. The next tax bracket, which is 12 up to 42 grand, and any money in there is charged at 20%. And then from there up to what I earn, in this case 58,000, and any money in there is taxed at 40%. Okay, but how much money is in there? There's the first sum. Well, in 0 to 12,000 is full, so it's 12,000. 12,000 up to 42,000 is full, which is 30,000. 42,000 up to 58,000 is basically taking these away from each other. Yeah, phone is going off. I don't need to answer it though. Okay. Right, guys. 12,000. Let's take that number first. That 12,000 is being taxed at 0%. That means I will pay no tax on that 12,000. The next 30,000 of my income is being taxed at 20%. 10% of that is 3,000. Double it for 20% is £6,000. And finally, the remaining 16,000 of my income is being charged at 40%. That one I will need to do a little sum. I'm going to need 10%, which is 1,600. Get rid of the 0 to 1 for 10%, and I'm going to have to times that by 4 to get 40%. 24. 4 ones are 4, add 2 is 6, so 6,400. So my total tax for the year comes from adding together all these amounts. My total tax for the year in this case is 12,400. That is it. If you're happy and comfortable with all those, like I said, about a 20-minute video here. Hopefully that really helps you. Let me know if it doesn't, and we will have a go at some extra ones in class if you need me to. All the best.